The world often sees Jamie Dornan through the shimmering lens of red carpets, tailored suits, and the camera's perfect light. He's the embodiment of charm, the man whose name sparks headlines, whose smile graces magazine covers. But somewhere beyond the glare, beyond the applause, there's another world. A quieter one. And in that quiet, a woman named Amelia Warner built a life that isn't made of flashbulbs or fame, but of patience, creativity, and love that doesn't need to shout to be real. It's easy to assume that living with a movie star is a dream. The travel, the luxury, the glamour. But when Amelia was once asked what it's truly like to share life with one of Hollywood's most desired men, she smiled softly and said, "It's not like the movies." Her words carried both warmth and weight. Because behind the polished image the world sees, there are days of distance, weeks of silence, and the constant hum of public attention that never quite fades. When Amelia first met Jamie, neither of them was chasing fame. She was already known as a musician and actress in her own right, a woman with a poetic soul who wrote songs instead of speaking too much. Jamie, then, was still defining his place in the world, modeling, auditioning, dreaming. Their connection wasn't a thunderstorm. It was quiet, familiar, almost ordinary, the kind of connection that grows not from spectacle, but from recognition. They understood each other's silences. But when 50 Shades of Grey exploded into global sensation, everything changed. Overnight, Jamie became a household name, a symbol of fantasy and desire. And with that fame came waves of curiosity that reached deep into his personal life. Amelia suddenly found herself in a strange spotlight she never asked for, labeled, compared, sometimes pitied. There were whispers that questioned whether she could handle it, whether she was jealous, whether she was invisible next to such a phenomenon. She chose silence, not out of weakness, but strength. While tabloids speculated, Amelia was at home composing music, raising their daughters, and creating a world where fame had no authority. Her art remained delicate and sincere, a reflection of her belief that not all stories need to be loud to be heard. And perhaps that is where the heart of her life with Jamie truly lies, in the contrast between his public chaos and her private calm. Friends who know them often describe Amelia as the anchor in Jamie's whirlwind life. She's the one who keeps the ground beneath his feet steady when everything around him spins faster than ever. When asked about their dynamic, Jamie once said, "She gives me perspective. I go out into madness, and she brings me back to something real." It's a rare kind of partnership, one built not on attention, but on understanding. Yet it hasn't been without tension. Fame has its own gravity. The constant travel, the months apart, the expectations that come with celebrity, they test even the strongest foundations. There were moments when Amelia questioned the cost of this life, the privacy lost, the identity blurred by association. But through it all, she never let the public define her marriage. Instead, she let the small, genuine things define it: bedtime stories, laughter in the kitchen, songs played softly while Jamie was away filming. Her resilience became its own kind of rebellion. In a culture obsessed with visibility, Amelia's choice to stay unseen became her quiet form of power. And perhaps that's what makes her story so compelling. She represents the beauty of what lies behind the glamour. Not the fame, not the perfection, but the humanity that fame so often hides. When she finally decided to speak more openly about her life with Jamie, it wasn't to correct the record or feed the curiosity of fans. It was to remind people that even the most glamorous lives have ordinary corners, and that love, in its truest form, often lives there. "People think glamour is happiness," she once said gently, "but it's not always that way." In that single sentence, you can feel the weight of years spent balancing light and shadow, applause and silence. It's not a confession of sadness, but of truth. That behind every photograph and interview lies a reality built on choices. The choice to stay grounded, to protect what's sacred, and to love quietly even when the world demands spectacle. Because behind every perfect image of Jamie Dornan, there's Amelia, not standing in his shadow, but standing beside him, unseen yet essential. And perhaps that's the real story, the one worth telling. Not the fairy tale of fame, but the simple, enduring love that survives beneath it. When Amelia Warner finally chose to open her heart about life with Jamie Dornan, it wasn't a grand revelation. It was soft, thoughtful, like her. Sitting in a quiet room with sunlight falling through the window, she spoke of the small, unremarkable moments that make up their world. The world sees Jamie as this larger-than-life figure, she said. But at home, he's just a husband and a dad who forgets where he left his keys. It's in those small moments that the truth of their relationship lives. There's the way he makes breakfast when he's home from filming, the way she hums while writing new music, the way their daughters run between them, turning ordinary mornings into beautiful chaos. To outsiders, their life might seem extraordinary: movie premieres, award shows, magazine spreads. But to Amelia, the most precious parts are the ones no one sees. The evenings when the lights are dim, and the noise of the world feels far away. Jamie has often spoken about how Amelia's calmness changed his life. For someone constantly on the move, hopping from one film set to another, slipping in and out of characters, her steadiness became a sanctuary. "She keeps me tethered to who I really am," he said in one interview. "Without her, I think I'd lose myself in the noise." That noise isn't just the attention or the fame. It's the pressure to perform, to be perfect, to always have the right smile or the right answer. For many actors, it becomes suffocating. But Jamie found balance in the home Amelia built, a space where imperfection was not only allowed, but welcomed. A space where he could stop performing and just be. Amelia's quiet strength didn't come from ease, it was earned. In the early years of their marriage, she learned the rhythm of absence, the silence that follows when your partner's face is suddenly everywhere but he's thousands of miles away. She faced the loneliness that comes with supporting someone who belongs partly to the public. Yet she never turned bitter. Instead, she turned inward, into music, into motherhood, into creating something of her own. Her compositions often carry the emotional fingerprints of that life, gentle, melancholic, hopeful. She doesn't sing about fame or fortune, but about human tenderness, about the ache and comfort of love. In one interview, she said, "Music is where I process what I can't say out loud." Perhaps that's why her work feels intimate. It's the echo of her private world with Jamie. Their marriage, to many, seems almost too quiet for Hollywood standards. No scandals, no public feuds, no sensational headlines. Just two people choosing normalcy over notoriety. But that quietness is exactly what makes them strong. They've built a fortress not out of walls, but out of trust. Jamie has said that Amelia taught him to be present, not just in front of a camera, but in life. When he comes home from filming, he leaves his characters at the door. He becomes dad again, husband again, real again. And Amelia, in her understated grace, never tries to compete with his world. She doesn't need to. Her power lies in knowing who she is: an artist, a mother, a woman whose happiness doesn't depend on visibility. In a culture that glorifies constant exposure, her silence speaks volumes. It's her way of saying, you can live in the public eye and still belong to yourself. What makes their story resonate isn't the glamour, but the grounding. The way they remind us that love, in its strongest form, doesn't need to be performed. It doesn't live on screens or headlines. It lives in shared laughter over burnt toast, in holding hands when no one's watching, in saying, "I'm home," and meaning it. Jamie once said that Amelia is his greatest mirror, that through her, he sees the truest version of himself. And she, in turn, finds beauty in the ordinary parts of their life together, the ones the world never gets to see. It's that balance, fame and normalcy, light and quiet, that makes them work. At the end of her interview, Amelia smiled when asked what she's learned about love. That it's not about how perfect you look together, she said. It's about how real you are when no one else is looking. Behind the glamour, there's no script, no director, no audience. Just two people, choosing each other again and again, in chaos and calm, in spotlight and silence. And perhaps that's the most beautiful kind of story, one that doesn't need to be told, but simply lived.